to Enlightenment of Change on webtalkradio.com. I'm your host, Connie Whitman. I'm excited that you're here this week. So here's the deal. When we hear that word change, whether we choose it or it's thrust upon us, the word can create like that knot in our stomach where what's the next step? So to help you navigate change, I do believe, and my guests and I were just talking about this before we hit record, it really boils down to clear communication. Well, how do we achieve that? In the show notes, you'll see my gift. It's my communication style assessment, my gift to you. You'll get 2 reports after taking the little quiz. First quiz is your highest score. Usually that's just your natural communication superpowers. So it's how your message just easily lands for you. Flip side, your lowest score, that's usually, to me, can shine a light on a potential blind spot. So when you're communicating with people 180 degrees different than you, more important, how is your message landing there? So again, the link will be in the show notes. You'll get those 2 reports, and I hope it helps you navigate change, whatever that means to you in your life or career. Now, to set the stage from the topic for my guest tonight, I chose a quote by Roy T. Bennett, and Roy says, It's never too late to change your life for the better. You don't have to take huge steps to change your life. Making even the smallest changes to your daily routine can make a big difference to your life. So here's the deal. Are you at a crossroad and maybe ready to pursue what else might be possible out there in your life? And are you eager maybe to find a new or renewed sense of purpose and meaning? Whether you're facing an unexpected transition, like I said before, or want to proactively create one, discover how to embrace the next chapter of your life, dream big, live boldly, and create fulfilling life you love. Well, guess what? You're in store today. So if my quote or the questions I just went through just kind of resonated with you and you're thinking, this sounds interesting, I promise the next 30 minutes it can be life-changing for you. So who is this amazing guest that we're going to dig into this topic of embracing change with ease and grace? Her name is Kat O'Sullivan. Kat is a keynote speaker, podcast host, author, and transition coach. For over 25 years, she's helped individuals and organizations discover new possibilities, even when they felt impossible. Kat has worked across sectors, corporate, nonprofit, education, and privately owned businesses. She provides a roadmap, support, and tools to bring their vision to life. She's extremely passionate about helping people move toward the future, just waiting for them to say, hell yes, to new possibilities. So Kat, thank you so much for being on the show. And I don't know about you, but I think this is a real important conversation. With each passing year, I think we lose sight of what life should be, filled with joy, etc. So, and I'm sure you're in the weeds with that stuff.
I am. And I love that we're having this conversation. So yeah.
Yeah, and hopefully we inspire people to just shift their perspective even in the slightest way. And that's where really magic and change happens with a little bit more ease. So that's what we're all about. Kat and I are all about change is great. Let's embrace it, but let's make it as easy as possible to move forward, right? With those little reiterations or iterations in life. So First question for you, my friend. You're known for doing the seemingly impossible throughout your life. Yeah. What prepared you for that? Or what do you think prepared you for that?
Well, we never know how something is going to change our life, the unexpected. And for me, it happened when I was 14. And I was invited to go to this 2-hour performance by Up With People. And this was, a lively, engaging, young people performance, singing and whatnot, but with a very positive message. And at 14, when I saw this, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. My dream became, I'm going to find a way to travel Up With People. And this was college age kids and I'm 14. So, it was a big dream though. What's interesting is at 16, they decided to start a high school cast for juniors and seniors. And when I heard that, I'm like, hell yes, this is my dream. And of course, everyone's like, Kat, they're only going to pick 100 people around the world. What's your chance? I said, I am going, period. That's it. And so believe it or not, I applied, I got accepted. And when I got that letter, I'm running through the house like I've won the sweepstakes. And my parents are like, "Oh, that's great, hon, but we can't have you traveling for a year and we can't afford that and yada, yada, yada." And I'm like, "Oh my God, I'm not going to let anybody steal my dream." So it was like, get into the mode of how do I make this happen?
Mm.
Well, the year before, I had gone to, there was an NBC special with Bob Hope, and he was the MC, and I happened to be in the audience. So I picked up the phone, I called NBC Studios in Burbank, and I said, "Hi, this is Kat. Can I talk to Bob, please?" Long story short, before I knew it, he happened to be there. They put him on the phone. And I'm like, "Hey, Bob, this is Kat. I don't know if you remember me." Ha ha ha. We met briefly when you emceed this show, and they're starting a high school cast, and I'm accepted. The problem is, I don't have the money to pay for it. And I couldn't believe my ears. He said, and I gave my kind of song and dance about how this was going to change my life. And he basically said, "Where do I send the check?" And he paid for that year. And I ended up staying 2 years, but it never would have been possible. And I used to call this my Bob Hope strategy, as in, believe it's possible and just go for it. Well, now I call it my hell yes strategy because, not everyone remembers Bob Hope.
Yeah.
But that experience, those 2 years on the road, transformed my life. And, it gave me a vision for, new possibilities and how I could contribute and change the world. I mean, they were all about helping young people become lifelong change makers. And it was so true for me because, I was this white girl from, middle class America, never been, exposed to anything else. And now, I spent 2 years and we stayed in people's homes wherever we lived. So,
Awesome.
Imagine just the diversity of people and environments and everything that
What
I
an
was
education.
exposed to. And, that I just think, what if that hadn't happened? What if I hadn't picked up the phone?
Yeah.
What if I hadn't believed that I would figure it out?
Yeah.
And that's carried me forward into doing the seemingly impossible over and over again, using that same strategy. And,
So there were so many things in that I want to unpack for the listeners. So first of all, you were extremely young at 14 to believe in self, to believe in manifestation, call it whatever you want, right? So you had this innate sight, vision, whatever, I believe it's going to happen and I'm going to make it happen and nothing's going to stop me, because you felt it so deeply in your heart and in your bones, right? So that's really the first thing when we talk about change and manifesting change in our life that we choose or potentially choose, right?
Mm-hmm.
We have to believe it in our bones. So at 14, what an interesting perspective for a young person. That's number one. Number two, that your tenacity of, "Oh yeah, I'll find it." Like when your mom and dad said, "Yeah, great, you ain't going, we don't have the money." And you thought, "Well, I'll show you, I'll find the money," right? So not, "Well, okay, you're right, I'm not going to." And here's the other thing. When you were saying that, in my heart, I felt, oh, the parents. Your parents were doing it out of love, Kat. They were protecting you. They didn't want you to get disappointed. They couldn't afford it. That's the reality, right? That's what we do as parents. And sometimes we can shatter a child's dream without even realizing it because we're in protection mode. So be careful, my parents that are listening, what we say to our kids in a situation like that you were thinking, "Yeah, man, I've arrived. This is happening. How exciting." And your parents are like, "Yeah, that's not happening." We do it all the time. So that was the other thing I wanted to comment on. But that your tenacity to say, Bob Hope. I don't know the guy, but I'm going to call him up. And for people who know Bob Hope, I think he was truly a good guy. But that you had the tenacity, that's the best word I know I keep saying it, but the tenacity to pick up the phone and say, do you remember me? Which I think is absolutely adorable. And then for him to say, first of all, as an adult now, right, as appeared to maybe Bob Hope at the time, if a child calls you for help, how do you say no to that? Especially that you were locked and loaded and how you presented it to him. He could not say no to you. Like you gave it in a silver platter for him to go, yes, of course, I'll give you the money.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, everything that you're saying is so important in terms of as a parent. And, I've been a parent and, we have a big impact on our kids in what they believe is possible. And, I didn't necessarily grow up in a home that was supportive. So I think at 14 to have that exposure to something that was so empowering. Yeah. Like I said, it changed my life.
Yeah. I just had an article. One of my friends, his name is Kevin Hancock. He's a CEO of Hancock Lumber, multi-generational business up in Maine, one of the oldest businesses in the United States. And I reference him a lot because he's doing a lot with leadership out in the corporate world. But he just posted a newsletter where a young lady in Maine, in his town, went away, something like you're describing. She went to this camp about, gaining confidence and stuff like that, and sharing your voice. And at first, because what are our kids taught, right? Put your nose in the phone, do social media, don't talk. You don't want to stand out, right? We're kind of blend in so that you fit in. Right. And so she grew up in that model as well, right? I think she's 17 going to college, and she was writing her letter for college acceptance. And in the article, she said she went to this camp, and at first she thought, oh, I don't know anything about politics. Oh, I don't know anything about that. I don't know. And she kind of sat and observed, and then someone reached out and kind of pulled her into the conversation. And she said as soon as she got started, she couldn't stop. She had so much to say, and yet at home, you're taught don't, right? Fall under the radar. And here she was empowered, and she wrote this beautiful, I hope it gets her into the college of her dreams, because she thought, no, I'm not going to sit quiet anymore. I have a voice. And as long as I'm respectful, right, I should share that voice, my vision, my perspective. And I think we need to start to learn to do that more respectfully, because we're not screaming at people like you're going to understand my point of view, which I think happens way too much out there, versus, hey, I think I have something empowering and inspiring to say, would you listen to me? So I think we have to find those boundaries. And you're very lucky that you were exposed to that as a child, because it catapult you to do what you're doing now, which my next question. So now you've been doing this for 25 years, a quarter of a century. What prompted you to write your new book, From Doubt to Do, and it's navigating your pathway to possibility? What was that trigger for you to move you forward?
First off, so many people have said, Kat, you need to write a book. You need to write a book. And, I was always so busy, no time to reflect and write my book. And yet I knew at some point it was inevitable. And it really didn't become possible until, whole nother story, in the middle of the pandemic, we chose to move to Mexico, which maybe we'll come back to that. But it gave me time to reflect. And my passion really is how many people are out there living their life by default. Yeah. That are so busy, and they've lost sight of what's most important to them. And even when they stop to think about doing something new, something different, to your point, the immediate thing is resistance. Well, all those doubts creep in. Mm-hmm. All the doubts creep in, and it keeps us from pursuing the life that we really want to live. So, my passion was to capture those stories of the seemingly impossible, starting with that, goes back further, but just to be able to share examples of what it looks like to do the seemingly impossible and what it took to do that. the how-to as well as, the story. So it evolved into this book, Doubt to Do, because that's what it's all about. How do we overcome our doubts to do that thing that may seem impossible, and yet it's not? It's all mindset that keeps us from moving forward. So then it's all about how do you navigate that pathway to new possibilities. So it came out of that passion for helping people get past their doubts.
I think it's important that you've created this book, right? You said, I had all these stories, I had all these thoughts. I knew I wanted to help bigger, right? So people can afford to buy a book and then read, and it can be inspiring and transformative, which is awesome. So that's the catalyst, right? But now how do I do it? And the other thing, as you created the book, I like how you incorporated the stories and then the how-to, because sharing a story is great and it can inspire people to want to take action, but then they sit there and they go, I don't know what the first step is. So by giving the story, having the inspiration, and then saying, hey, man, here's the first easy peasy step, all of a sudden we have people in movement. And I think that a lot of books are great, but if they don't give you that how-to essence or those little baby steps forward, I think people read, are inspired, but then it kind of lands flat because they don't know what that step is, right?
Yeah. And I think the other thing that's unique about this book, and it was kind of one of those 2 a.m. ahas, is, as I was writing the stories, I had moments of reflection for the reader. And to your point, going from that to now what, I decided to create a 2-part book. First would be the stories and the how-tos, but the second part is a journal.
Oh.
And so for each chapter, there's a chapter in part 2 that goes deeper, like to help them think deeper about what it means to go from doubt to do.
I love that. It's so funny. My expertise is sales. So every time, I've been in business 25 years, right? So how many clients, how many programs have I developed? But I always listen. So Kat, it would be funny. An employee would say, they would say, Con, how do you handle this objection? And I'd go, blah, 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 right? And I would give them the answer. Oh, wait, say that again. And I go, I don't know what I just said, right? Because it's those moments, you're an expert. You don't think about it. You just know it's the right answer. So I started really tapping in and writing down. So like if somebody came to me with that objection, well, I heard it 5 times. I thought, they need a tool now. So I would create these job aids depending on the organization, so that I would say, you guys keep asking me this. So, and then I give you a response, but then I forget what I said. So I really sat down and I thought about it, and I gave you some iterations that maybe are comfortable for you to use or say. And then so it's not only the how-to in the moment of the classroom, but then it's those afterthoughts of, here are some thoughts for you to reflect upon. Would you say it this way? Would you never say it? Well, you should never say it the way I would say it, right? But what is your communication style, so that you can have the essence of what I said, the template, right, if you will, to handle that objection. But now you're saying it in your words from your heart, whole different game that people will resonate with because it's authentic and real for you. That's what you just said, or that's what I heard you just say, by sharing the inspiration, the story, having the how-to, the steps, and then saying, but for you, let's get in the weeds for you, not for me, not for Connie, but for you. And that's what that journal is. I love that, Kat. That's awesome. Brilliant.
Yeah.
Those 2 a.m. downloads are rocks. They're like rock stars in our head, right? Yeah. So now, next question. When you say it's time to make magic happen, what does that look like for you and maybe for the clients that you work with?
Yeah. So when I say magic, I'm not talking about, like hocus pocus. I'm talking about the magic that happens when we have the courage to challenge those doubts and pursue those new possibilities. And, it literally can be magical. When you have that belief, when you get clarity and you have the courage to say hell yes to something, it becomes magical what happens. It's all I can say. It's like, how do you explain it? It just happens.
And I use magic all the time. I'm going to make you laugh. Those of you, wait, let me see. They moved it on me. I have a magic wand. Usually it's right behind me. It's not where it is. I'm not going to waste time for that. So everybody on YouTube saw my back, right? But I have a magic wand because I do believe when we dial in with, in my case, the client, right? With you, when you dial into whoever that reader is or that person you're coaching, right? To help them transform their life. When you give the steps with its clarity, see, again, it goes back to that clarity of communication. Magic really does happen because the path, it's like walking in dirty water, right? And then all of a sudden, like magic, you have a plan. And now you look down at your feet and you go, oh, the water's clear because you have the path forward. You see what that next step is. And that is really like magical that you can see your feet now from that muddy water.
And you can only see what you're looking for. So until you get that clarity in terms of what you really want, you're not going to see it if it's right in front of your face.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and we have to be open to seeing what's possible as well. I don't know. I hear this all the time. Again, I train corporations, the employees, salespeople at corporations, and they'll say to me, Con, I don't have a choice. I have a mortgage. My kid's in college. I have to, and I look at them and I go, but you always have a choice. Now, if your choice is to stay, good for you, right? There's nothing wrong with that. But if your choice is I'm miserable, but I have to stay. Nobody has to do anything. You're always in a place of power. I think we give our power away because of fear. I don't know. That's my take on it. Kat, what do you, weigh in on this?
Yes. And so you said a couple of things that are, which is should and have to. How many times do we let shoulds and have tos rule our life? And what happens when we actually give ourselves permission to ponder what else is possible in our life? And, the key is giving ourselves permission because we're so used to asking for permission that it can be difficult to give ourselves permission, especially women, I think. It's difficult to give ourselves permission to pursue what we really want, because we've been so busy doing for everybody else that when do we stop and say, what do I want? And is it okay to want what I want?
It's interesting. I don't know. I'll ask this question to you. I look back and I tell my kids this, every decade in life, there's a theme, if you will. So in your 20s, right, you're finishing college or whatever trade school or whatever, you're in the workforce, right, in your 20s, and you're building your craft, you're building your confidence, you're building your resume. That's all in your 20s. It's a very tumultuous time, I think, in life because there's a lot of new beginnings, right? Moving out or moving in with a girlfriend or getting married, boyfriend, whatever it might be. Then in your 30s, I feel like your craft, you're starting to really understand your craft and you settle in a little bit, and now the money starts coming in, and then you create a family and you have those commitments. And then in your 40s, you have even more confidence. Your kids, now you're running around with the kids and their sports, and right. And then your 50s, you kind of settle in back to you. And it's not just the mom or dad role. And now in my 60s, it's funny because in my 60s, I thought, holy crap, I'm in my 60s. I have longevity in my family, but that doesn't mean I'm going to live a long life. So, whoa, how much time do I have left? And am I making myself happy with the things that are in my heart that I want to achieve? It took me till about 60 to have that revelation of I don't have to do XYZ for a parent or kids or siblings or whatever. How can I start to reflect on my desires and wants in life? Because, not that I feel like I'm running out of time, but I'm running out of time. So I don't know. How about for you? Like, does that make sense, those decades?
It totally does. And, I'm working now primarily with women 50 plus for the very reason that we're talking about, because that's the point when it's like, what's this really all about? And, and we're not going to live forever, but hey, you know what? People are living into their 90s and even 100 now. Yeah. So we've got a lot of our life left to live. And how are we going to live that life? And is it true to who we really are? and being willing to step back and say, who am I really? What is really important to me now? What is the difference that I want to make in the world? And I talk a lot about the idea that we are living our legacy every moment, choice by choice. And so often we're living it by default.
Yeah.
And to your point, when you reach that midpoint, of 50, now it's like that default all of a sudden doesn't feel so meaningful.
Yeah.
So it's time to stop and ponder, what else is possible? What do you really want? And what will it take in order to bring that to life?
Yeah. I'm finding, and I'm curious if you're finding this as you're on the road, with the book speaking and stuff like that, and clients that are hiring you based on the book, and just you as a transformation coach. Do you see the kids, and I'm saying the Gen Zs, the 20s, early 30s, they are so open to, I'm not happy. I want a new job, or I'm not happy with where my life is now, or I'm not happy with my car, whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
But they're more proactive, I feel, because sometimes my kids are in their 20s and mid to late 20s. And whenever they say something, Kat, sometimes I think, oh my God, grow up, deal with it. I dealt with it. Pull up your that's my default of how I was raised. But then I pause and I think, good for them. They're thinking, they're using their brain to say, whoa, 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 if I'm not happy, is there something better I should be doing or could be doing for myself? Could better than should. Yep. I could be doing for my soul, for myself. Do you find that? I'm finding that with the 20-somethings. I'm very impressed by them.
I did a lot of research on the generational issues. And one of the things that I found is that there's a lot of judgment around, the young people today by the older people today. And I think some of it is a bit of resentment, because it's like, well, to your point, I had to do it this way. I didn't have the luxury of being able to think about what I really wanted and, yada, yada, yada. So I think there's an element of judgment rather than the opportunity we have later in life is to support these young people, to help them get really curious about themselves, about what they're passionate about, rather than, saying, oh, they're lazy and they're this and they're that. It's like, how can we come alongside them and gift them with a little more positivity and proactiveness and openness to what else is possible?
Yeah. And I think being proactive, that this generation is more, I feel when I look back, we were more reactive. You graduated, you got a job. If it had benefits, a steady paycheck, and a 401k, and it was big enough that you can maneuver and grow your career, take the job. And I would say, maybe I would have said to my parents, but it's soul sucking. I hate it. Doesn't matter. It has a steady paycheck. It has benefits. It has a 401k, and you have growth take it. So soul sucking was okay back then, where now I don't think soul sucking is okay. So I think this next generation maybe saw us go through the soul sucking gyrations of work and thought, that ain't for me.
Yeah.
God bless them. And the other thing you said that I think is important, Kat, we should be learning from them. That proactive, that energy, that little jump in their step. I think we need to maintain that level of engagement as we age, right? Because people say, oh, I just can't wait for retirement. And I can't wait to the point where my kids have grandkids. I want to help babysit, and I want to be part of their lives, right? To help them financially not have to pay for daycare if I could fill in. So all of those things. But I can't wait to retire tomorrow. That doesn't even enter my radar, because I'm passionate about what I do. Do you feel the same way?
Everyone says, Kat, you have failed at retirement. And I'm like, hell yes, and proud of it, because there's so much more that we can be and do as we mature.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a point in our life when we have so much to give. And, thinking that we're just going to sit in our lounge chair watching Netflix or whatever, I can't go there.
Yeah.
I'm still like, how am I going to make a difference in, the remainder of my life? And, it may take different, a different path along the way, but the idea is, how am I going to make a difference? And to your point, I love the idea that, learning from our young people. So we have a lot to give them, and they have a lot to give us, because we are now at the point where we can do the things that they're wanting to do, reflect, think about what's important, find something that aligns with that, something that's not soul sucking.
Yeah. Yeah. It's motivating. It's inspiring. And it's funny because, as we age, we do get tired. I don't have the stamina I did when I was 39 and I opened my business. Now I can't train 5 days a week. I'd be dead on a Friday night. But these kids, they give me a little bit jump and I think, oh, I want to do that too. So they inspire me to take on, like I'm working with a data scientist, and we're creating some AI tools that I can use for sales audits and stuff like that. It's very exciting to create this. I could never do it on my own because it's beyond my scope of capacity of thinking, because I didn't grow up with the technology. But hearing these kids and how they use chat GPT and AI, I'm like, oh my God, I could use that too. So you get that little, again, it's like magic when you're open. Again, it goes back to what we were saying. When you open yourself to a different perspective, when we honor where these kids are, right, and see how we can leverage their ambition and their energy, I think it becomes that ripple effect, right? We can, the boat rises together, right? As the tide rises, all boats or all ships rise.
And recently I heard something that really resonated that I'm now really using, which is learn into the unknown.
Oh, I love that.
Isn't that awesome? I don't know where I heard it, but it just stuck with me. I've got a Post-it note on my computer, learn into the unknown, because we are facing the unknown every day.
Yeah.
And if we're not in a growth mindset, willing to learn new things, we're going to be left behind.
Yeah. And it's funny because I say that I work mostly with financial institutions, banks, credit unions, cross country. And, people say, well, the technology, I'm going to lose my job. I said, well, then force yourself to not lose your job by remaining relevant. Right. Learn the technology. If you're a teller now and you think I want to do more, ask, hey, can I learn that? Hey, can I learn that? Hey, can I learn that? You make yourself relevant, because all of a sudden now you have 20 skills that your peers don't have because you asked to learn it. And my kids, when they first got their jobs at CAT, they'd come home and say, yeah, they want me to work overtime. And I'd just look at them. I didn't have to say anything. If you're looking at my eyes, if you're on YouTube, you see what I'm saying? You can read my body language. And I'd look at them and they go, yes, of course. I said, yes, I'll do the overtime. I said, your boss says to you, hey, you want to learn this? Hey, can you stay and help us with that? Your response, sure, I can do that. Sure, I can do that. And I says, and mark my words, you will differentiate yourself from every other 20-something new entry, whatever, and you'll get promotions and you'll get raises and you'll get more responsibility. Fast forward, that's exactly what's happening to them. And they look at me and they say, you were right. And you know what? You didn't want to stay and work overtime because it was a Friday night. Deal with it. It's one Friday, put things in perspective. Yeah. But that's the idea of remaining relevant. And you and I, you're a little younger than me, I think, but you and I as peers, we're friends.
Truth be told,
right? But even at our age, that learning into the unknown, I think, keeps us relevant and useful, because we do have a lot. We are experts in our craft now. For me, it's 40-something years. I'm sure it's the same for you. Tap into that, man, because it can make their life easier for sure. But again, it can create magic behind the scenes just by doing some of the little steps that you recommend. We're out of time. There's so many more questions, Kat. I'm dying. So guys, listen, here's the deal. First of all, please buy the book. To me, that's a no-brainer to see if what Kat is talking about and that creating that how-to book, I think, is really important. So the book's name is Doubt to do navigating your pathway to possibility. So that's number one, call to action. Buy the book and see if it resonates with you. And I love the journaling at the end because that makes the story, then the how-to, but now you made it very personal for the person to get in the weeds. So love the setup of the book, number one. Number two, if you have a question directly, please email Kat. Her email is kat@katosullivan.com. Website, katosullivan.com.
And it's Kat with a K.
Kat with a K. Thank you for that. K-A-T. And then katosullivan.com. Also, you have a gift for my peeps. Can you tell everybody what it is? And that link will be in the show notes as well.
Yeah. I've created a self-assessment that you can do, and it includes 10 attributes that you will need if you want to make a significant change, transition, shift in your life.
I love it.
So to be able to get a feeling for where are you on each of those 10 things, which of them are a no-brainer, check, no problem. Which are the ones that maybe, I need to make a shift in that. And there's a little activity after the assessment to look at what your top priorities are and to take action. And there's also an invitation to join my Make Magic Happen community that is specifically for women 50 plus. So if you fall into that category, there's also an invitation to join that, and it's free.
Awesome. That's awesome. Thank you so much. Here's the deal, guys. Everything Kat just said with that free gift, play with it. Take that quiz because you might have a blind spot that you don't realize, or subconsciously you realize, but you didn't tap into it, or you think, put it on ignore because I don't know what to do. And then the activity at the end can help them navigate some of what those changes that they can learn to, right, embrace that unknown. I love that phraseology. So the the free link will be in the show notes for you. Please take advantage of that because it might shine a light on a blind spot that could change your life and change not only your life. I think the other thing too, and I know this with my kids as well. So I'm not just talking us, our generation, but even the younger generation. I think we are more aligned socially to make a difference in the world than maybe we were when we were younger, because it was about survival, right? Making the ends meet and raising the kids and kind of on our own, where I think we're more globalized, maybe because of COVID, but they're willing and wanting, as am I, as are you. That's why you published this book, to make a difference in the world. So this is such a nice way to shine a light personally by taking that little quiz. So thank you so much for sharing that with my listeners.
Yes, I hope they'll take advantage of it.
Me too. It's, again, call to action. Here's one little baby action step. Do the link, take the quiz, get the report, and then reflect. Just do that, and that could be life-changing for the listener. So, Kat, thank you so much for being on. Thank you for sharing your zone of genius, and thank you for writing the book. I hope everybody reads it as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And you guys, I hope you'll join me weekly as we question, build, and discover together, no matter where you are in change in your life, whether you've chosen it or, again, it's thrust upon you. Need I say COVID, right? That was thrust upon the whole world. Change can be easier than you think if you have a roadmap or a plan. Kat has given us several things that we can navigate from. Again, download that quiz, shine that light, man. Let's shine bright because we can make a difference in the world. Sometimes it's one little magical step, like taking the quiz. So again, Kat, thank you so much for sharing. Thank you for tuning in. You've been listening to Enlightenment of Change with me, your host, Connie Whitman, on webtalkradio.com. I am truly inspired that you tune in every week to listen to my guests and our conversation, and hopefully all the gifts that my guests share helps you with whatever it is that you're looking for to navigate in your life. We are here to do magical things. We are here to live large and just share beautiful things in the world. Please be inspired to take action. One more time, Kat, it's learn into the unknown.
Learn into the unknown.
I love it. And on that note, I'm going to sign off and say, I love you all. I'll see you next week. Have a great week, everybody. Be inspired, take action, and make some magic. Next time.